99% of all gaps get filled, right? Whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, or now you could also have gaps in the 5-minute chart. You could have gaps in an hourly chart. You could have gaps in a daily chart, right? You could have even gaps in an hourly chart, in a weekly chart. So the longer the time frame, the longer it takes to sort of the gap to get filled, but eventually all gaps get filled. So if a gap has been created on the downside, so if it's a gap down, eventually the price will rise up there. Then it can further come back down again, or the trend can continue, but the gap will get filled. Similarly, when the price opens gap up, chances are either immediately at that time the wick will come and fill it, or after, because the traders are anyway, so if trading is starting there, somebody is anyway liable to book a profit there who's probably bought it the previous day, right?
Got it.
So that gap immediately either gets filled or it gets filled after a certain period of time. Gaps of the
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे बाप होते हैं.
We are live.
क्या बोल रहा था तू? तुझे सिडनी स्विनी पसंद है?
इसको
हाँ,
नहीं पसंद है.
इसको नहीं पसंद है. I
तेरे
can think
केस में
of a
तो
couple of
she's a baby, bro. I mean, she's a fetus for you, bro.
Aren't you like 60 years old or something?
Yeah, bro.
Let me remove my glasses then. कुछ दिख
Okay.
नहीं रहा है. Hang on.
All right. Welcome. Podcast number 17, Baps of Crypto. I'm with Narkundi, Crypto Daddy, and Realist. It is a
Yo.
bull versus bear market. यानी यही जो सारे के सारे बेयर थे अब वापस से आधे पलट गए कि दिस इज द बॉटम, कि समहाउ कि मेरा एक तुक्का लग जाए कि मैंने बॉटम कॉल कर दिया, फिर अगले 6 महीने में खींचूंगा उसको कि ये देखा
Correct.
मैंने बोला था कि बॉटम लग गया. एनीवेज, न्यूज में क्या चल रहा है? सो एक सेकंड, लेट मी शेयर माय स्क्रीन. एंड when I say this, right, when I'm sharing my screen, Adil, you need to add.
That's your cue, Adil.
That's your cue. Oh yeah. Sorry, ये गलत चार्ट है.
Ooh, beautiful chart.
This chart. So this is the current situation of the market.
Bro,
The US
I see Twitter.
Yeah. So this is the
Okay.
current situation of the market. The US is preparing a $2,000 stimulus check. Japan is preparing a $2,000 stimulus check from the tariffs, which is debatable because उनकी जितनी कमाई नहीं हुई है उससे ज्यादा का तो वो तो total revenue that has come from tariffs is around 80 billion. But now Trump is promised like a $2,000 stimulus check for low and middle income people, which will amount up to $400 billion. So,
Of course.
so they will
But
probably
you know,
like
those stimulus checks are expected like mid next year, not anytime soon.
yeah, mid next. But again, it won't. अगर अभी पूरे इतने टाइम में $80 billion हुआ है, I'm guessing कि with the trade deals and all coming up, $400 billion तो शायद नहीं पहुंचा है.
No, I don't think so. But the point is, that the people who are sort of looking into this, this is a bullish sentiment. I don't think so.
नहीं.
Maybe
But
later
I'm
on,
just-
but not.
कौन सा आदमी $2,000 लेके कौन सा
कितना पंप होएगा $2,000?
क्या ऐसा थोड़ी कि जो आदमी $2,000 ले रहा है वो सारा का सारा क्रिप्टो में डाल रहा है, वो कि सबका बिटकॉइन
But
खरीद लिया उसने.
consensus ये है कि because COVID के time पे stimulus check मिले थे लोगों को, okay? And there is a theory that because those stimulus checks were given out to people, that money sort of came into the market. तो उसकी वजह से market थोड़ी pump हुई थी. But that's a theory. I mean, I don't know what the reality behind it. I don't know reality क्या है, and that is what people are basically carrying it on, you know.
पहले लोग के कार्ड, क्रेडिट कार्ड डिफॉल्ट्स, ऑटो लोन डिफॉल्ट्स, वो सब क्लियर करने में जाएगा. फिर खर्चे.
ऐसे कौन सोचता है $2,000 अगर मिलेंगे तो क्रेडिट कार्ड ऑटो लोन थोड़ी पे करेगा, वो डालेगा मीम टोकन में, उसको 10x करेगा फिर पे करेगा. किस तरह से बातें करता है?
100x, no 10x.
bullish SPX.
Yeah, bro. What is this? Stop
Yes,
thinking like a common man.
Yes, Murad, not think like a common man. Ki stop trying to be like a sensible person and trying to pay
true.
off all your debts. Yeah, think like a common person.
Think like
$2,000
Murad with his slick back hair.
Yeah. All right. Japan is obviously preparing a $110 billion stimulus package, which we spoke about yesterday. China has also approved a $1.4 trillion stimulus package. I mean, again, is it bullish for crypto? I don't know, but yeah. China can also afford $1.4 trillion, I guess, to put. Unlike
So
US.
there are
If there is
only
anybody who can
so,
afford,
so
it's China, I think, right now.
so all the previous bull markets were linked not with US M2 supply, but with actually China M2 supply. So US and China have to come together to create a bull market. So if China is
Really?
doing this, it's
Whoa.
bullish. Yeah.
Whoa! Chalo,
Yes.
this is the meta. Everyone 100x long.
Because everyone was always bull posting the US M2 supply, right? And saying
Yeah,
कि bull market आएगा, आ ही नहीं रहा, आ ही नहीं रहा, आ ही नहीं रहा. It's actually China also has to happen along with it. So historically,
got it.
both have happened together for the bull market to happen.
Got it. ठीक है, the Fed is officially obviously ending QT on December 1st. The
Boom.
US is issuing 1.9 trillion in treasuries per year. Okay. Canada is restarting its QE program. I'm guessing कि इससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला. Global M2 money supply is at a record 137 trillion. Global rate cuts are at 320 plus over the last 24 months.
Okay.
In what world is another wave of inflation not on its way? That is a good
It
question
is.
to
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a
I
matter of when.
आगे जाके आई डोंट थिंक कि थोड़े दिन में इन्फ्लेशन से लोग केयर करेंगे, बोलेंगे होने दो चीजें महंगी. सिर्फ हमारे यहाँ जो है सेंसिबल इंडियन गवर्नमेंट, दे केयर अबाउट इन्फ्लेशन एंड डेफिसिट एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट, कि जो पढ़े लिखे बेचारे लोग हैं वहाँ पे, यूएस में फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता लोगों को. करो स्टिमुलस, दो स्टिमुलस, बढ़ाओ
हाँ, उनको कोई
इन्फ्लेशन.
फर्क नहीं पड़ता भाई. दे लिव देयर लाइव्स ऑन डेट. तो उनको
या
कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता अगर वो 3% की जगह 4% अगर पे कर रहा है किसी चीज पे. He's like, okay, it's all
Yeah.
right, doesn't really matter. He has to still grind the same 9 to 10, 9 to 11 in the night. वो तो वैसे ही जी रहा है, उसको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा.
गॉड. चलो, ओके. नेक्स्ट थिंग, क्रिप्टो मार्केट स्ट्रक्चर बिल पे बात कर रहे थे हम लोग. सो दिस गाय, क्या बोलते हैं, क्या नाम है इसका, कॉइनबेस वाले का, ब्रायन आर्मस्ट्रॉन्ग.
Brian
Brian
So he,
Armstrong. Yeah.
so he's saying that it's almost done. Only 10% left before it clears committee by Thanksgiving. It's
Okay.
good. Kalshi has just put out a news that Tim Cook to reportedly step down as Apple CEO next year per फाइनेंशियल टाइम्स. तो आई एम गेसिंग कि कल पे एक खुल गया होगा कि टिम कुक कब
Market खुल गई
निकलेगा.
होगी. Yeah.
मार्केट खुल गई होगी इसकी. Yeah, I mean what you were talking about, realist, ki people are buying this dip, right? Whales are buying, like matlab
Yep.
big fucking people are buying the dip, and it's all over. You can see, like, even though retail is selling, people are
Yeah.
accumulating, like, धीरे धीरे.
Yeah, that accumulation's happening. At least the indicators that I'm looking at are.
Yeah, SEC chair Paul Atkins says massive easing crypto. यार एक तो पता प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि even the government, US government is like big boss का घर है वो, कि ना पहले वो
Correct.
टीजर देते हैं कि ये आने वाला है, और फिर ये आएगा. अरे डूड, कर दो फिर, पहले कर दो फिर बताओ. हाँ, ये फिर एक और रूमर ये क्रिप्टो रोवर की माउंट गॉक्स जो है बेच रहा है ये वो, बट अगेन इट्स अ रूमर. आई चेक डार्कम.
Bro, Crypto
They
Rover
just
is an idiot.
yeah
He doesn't know shit. वो
Yeah.
yeah
देखता है बस एक स्क्रीनशॉट लगाता है और ट्वीट फेंक देता है. He just does engagement farming, nothing else. I
Yeah.
wouldn't take this with any sort of
Yeah, I mean,
seriousness.
he and a couple of people, they were again, वही माउंट गॉक्स ने माउंट गॉक्स बेचने वाला है, माउंट गॉक्स बेचने वाला है, बट अगेन in all reality Mount Gox just moved it to another wallet, and which they
Yeah.
do like from time to time, because to as to not, like, get hacked and shit. Dr. Profit is very happy, very 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 happy. उसका $90,000 का टारगेट हिट हो गया.
Yes.
लाइक उसने पूरा चार्ट वार्ट बनाया था जब टॉप पे कि ये है मेरा नेक्स्ट टारगेट. बीच में ऊपर नीचे हुआ थोड़ा, तो उसकी फट रही थी, लाइक यहाँ पे लिक्विडिटी, यहाँ पे लिक्विडिटी, बट फाइनली his $90,000 टारगेट has
Has
been
been
hit.
achieved.
He has been achieved, and he is saying कि he's still not selling. So, and this guy, this Dr. Profit, I guess we've been following him for a while, just like
Yeah.
seeing what he's doing, and he's been like accurate pretty much like for the last
Yeah.
eight,
He,
9
he
months
actually, I think, has the highest strike rate this, like,
So far,
currently.
in
yeah.
the past
He's been well
7, 8
about it, yeah.
months. Yeah.
Yeah. He also put out that altcoins are extremely overvalued at this point. Lower, much lower we go for alts. As we were talking in like one of the previous podcasts also, कि alt BTC pairs जो तेरे हैं, वो they
They are
haven't
still
what
bleeding. Yeah.
they
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 are
are
still
they,
bleeding. Yeah.
but very slowly. मतलब कि they still have a ways to go. To be honest,
Yeah.
to go to the bottom end of that chart, right? They're still at like what 0.32 or 0.33 पे है अभी वो. It has to go to like 0.25. So that is also there for alts. Yeah, this is not a popular opinion, or as as we've spoken about, कि everyone is in alts, and तो अगर
They
तुम
don't like to
बोलो,
hear about it. Yeah.
yeah, they
They
don't
don't
like
like
to
to
hear.
hear about this. Yeah.
Don't want to accept it.
Yeah,
And I think
ठीक है.
even the people who've sort of given up hope in the alt market, they're still in the alt market because they can't really sell and exit right now, right? I mean, if they're
Yeah.
holding spots, they're still holding spots because the
Yes,
leverage is
yesterday I
actually
was
wiped out.
yeah, yesterday I don't know a KOL का मैं tweet पढ़ रहा था. He's like, I can't sell because I'm 80% down. I can't buy more because I don't have any cash.
Correct, exactly.
And
So
that
they
I think is a
are
very nice thing to say, because
way
that
over
is the
it.
situation of almost 90% of the KOLs that are sitting on CT today.
I think
Absolutely.
that was Ash Crypto. Ash Crypto, I
Yeah, I
think.
think one of those guys.
is,
Ash or one of those guys. Yeah,
yeah, ठीक है. El Salvador is obviously buying the dip.
buying
Like,
more.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is. कौन है नायब बुकलेले, क्या नाम है इसका?
Yeah,
El
yeah,
Salvador.
Naib Bukele.
Yeah. This guy's been like, he's been ahead of the fucking curve. कब से खरीद रहा है ये? 16-17 साल?
16 or 17 से they've been
Oh,
building.
ये तो मतलब they are the pioneers in government institutionalization of BTC.
Yeah, ठीक है. चलो, ये BTC का CME चार्ट है, and this is what we are going to talk about today. So just for your information, people keep talking about, CME gap खोला है, CME gap खोला है. Last night, one of the like lowest जो CME gap था 92 and
91 to
92.5
92 के. हाँ.
के बीच में, that closed. Now, we keep, if you see, for people, who are listening to us, कि लोग हमेशा बात करते रहते हैं कि CME gap क्या है, what is CME. So इस पे आज थोड़ी discussion करते हैं, so even people, they know what people are talking about. So Realist, we'll start with you. What is actually CME? What is the difference between CME futures and perps, right? And what is the CME gap phenomena that people keep talking
Got it.
about?
Got it. So CME is, I mean, people are familiar with the New York Stock Exchange. It's an exchange which matches buy and sell orders between buyers and sellers. It's like a market, so to speak. CME is very similar to that. It's the full form is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. I think it predates the New York Stock Exchange in terms of when it came into existence. I don't hold me to that. I think that's true. I'm not too sure though. But the reason why it's different from the New York Stock Exchange and the Nasdaq for that matter is that the CME is mostly popular for derivatives, essentially futures and options, right? And by derivatives, I mean expiry-linked derivatives, like any future or option which has a set expiry. I don't think they do spot listings. It's essentially mostly
No, they don't.
for derivatives, and it was essentially prepared. If you go back to the history, whether I think whether it was the COMEX or CME, one of the two, they were essentially prepared, sort of set up so that farmers could sort of hedge their produce. Like, for example, if a farmer was producing a lot of corn, or they were producing a lot of wheat, or any sort of crop, they could sort of hedge that because agriculture sort of crop prices. That's how sort of these trading sort of started, right? In the early days, you used to trade agricultural produce. So these farmers could essentially so if, for example, they had a bunch of crop and they don't know what the price is going to be post maybe 10 days when the crop is actually going to be sold, so they would probably end up taking some option contracts or future contracts to hedge their inventory so that they don't sort of have to suffer any kind of loss. And because of this, the CME was essentially created by a bunch of underwriters and agricultural sort of producers, farmers essentially. And these underwriters were underwriting these option contracts because somebody will sell you an option contract, only then can you buy it. They were underwriting these futures contracts, etc. So that's how it came into being. So and it's been so ever since, right? So it's been a very popular destination for trading derivatives. And one of the first sort of legalized exchanges on which a BTC and an ETH started trading, right? And essentially a BTC and an ETH are also commodities per se, right? So they are, and commodities are essentially only traded on derivatives basis. So which is why they got listed there and they are traded very, very heavily there. So the CME is, in terms of volume, it surpasses even Binance when it comes to trading volume on BTC and ETH. That's because that's where Wall Street trades as of now. Like before the ETFs, also this is where they were trading. And in terms, so that's what the CME is. It's an exchange only for derivatives. I gave you a little bit about its history as well. In terms of CME perpetuals and futures, so CME does not have perpetual contracts because perpetuals aren't really traded in the open world so easily. Like you have bonds that are perpetuals, but when it comes to derivatives on the commodity side or on the equity side, you usually have time linked or expiry linked contracts. So for example, you can have a future contract which will expire on a certain day. You can have an option contract which will expire on a certain day, which could be end of the week or it could be end of the month. It's usually the last Thursday of every month. That's how these option contracts. So on that day, the buyer and the seller will sort of shake hands and close the contract out. If a contract still remains open, if there is any outstanding, let's say there's a buyer and the seller does not want to come in, right? Whatever. And if the order does not get matched because the other party sort of backs out, then the person who's bought that future will have to essentially take delivery, which is something that we had seen with crude as well during the 2020 crisis. So even though spot didn't fall as much, but futures went into the negative because they had to take delivery. So that's the thing. So futures are essentially, so for example, they are essentially derivatives like perpetual. So you put in some margin and you take a larger position. So you put in $100, which is essentially your margin, and you take a $500 position, 5x of that, or maybe like a 2x of that, whatever the CME allows. And yeah, and you trade alongside that. So and obviously a seller will also do the same, who's probably short on that particular thing and will put in $100, etc. So that's so no perpetuals there. How does the gap phenomena come into place? I
So
think how
एक
the
second,
gap
एक मुझे
is
इस पे
used. Yeah.
I want to ask you something. You know, like
Yeah.
at the end of the contract, you have to take a delivery,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
अगर
That's
जैसे
only
इस
if you're a buyer and if you sort of not sold off your position, if you've not closed your position and you're letting your futures buy contract expire, you have to take delivery of that particular thing. Or you can let your order go into auction. So if you don't want to take delivery, because nobody can take delivery of, maybe if somebody is trading maybe a lot size which is 500 times, right? He won't be able to take that much delivery. So in that particular case, your order goes into auction. And in an auction, then sellers who then have the upper hand will close their orders at a favorable price. So auction houses exist. So when, say, at the end of expiry, you have, I think, a 24-hour period or a 48-hour period where your order, if it's not fulfilled or it's not closed by you, let's say you bought it and it's lying in your account and you haven't closed it, it moves into auction. And if nobody is willing to pick it up in auction, you have to compulsorily take delivery.
and in this case, delivery mean do I get a BTC in my account?
In this case, I mean, ideally that's what would happen, because the
yeah,
underlying asset is what you'll have to
asset is
take delivery
before.
for, and you'll have to pay the money of the entire asset then. So, for example, if you put in $100 but you're trading $500 worth of BTC, you'll have to take delivery of that $500 worth of BTC, which you obviously won't be able to. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been trading in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because futures and options are mostly used by institutional money to hedge their positions. It's only retail that uses it to trade, right?
Yeah.
Institutions use it to hedge. They will buy spot and hedge it with maybe like buying a put option, by buying a put option, or maybe selling a call option, or maybe stuff like that, right? They'll probably employ sort of these complex strategies. So yes, so if nothing happens, you will end up sort of have to take delivery. But mostly 99% of orders don't go into delivery because they move into auction houses, and that's where the sharks come in and pick stuff up for extreme dirt discounts, because they know that you don't have the money to sort of close the order. So then they'll sort of give you they'll buy it off at a deep discount, or they'll close the order at a deep discount rather. So that's what happens in the CME. Same thing happens in the stock markets as well. So even if you're trading a futures or an options contract on Zerodha in India, I don't know whether we're allowed to take names or not, but if you trade it on Zerodha and the National Stock Exchange or the Bombay Stock Exchange, wherever you bought that contract from, eventually if you don't take delivery or if you don't close the position, it moves into auction and
Okay.
24-hour period. So they are in constant touch with you because it's a big event, right? So they are in constant touch with people who don't close up their positions. Then they manage the entire auction off process and they ensure that you come out with the least amount of dent as possible. But yeah, there is a dent because auction basically means it's a buyer's market at that particular point of time, not a seller's market anymore.
All right.
And
CME
in
Gap.
terms of the gap, in terms of the gap, how you trade the gap, I think Crypto Daddy can probably come in.
What is the
You guys know
phenomena?
that
Like
better.
people keep talking about the gap.
Yeah. So the phenomena essentially is, so for example, in the regular crypto markets, for example, on Binance, you will never have gaps, right? What does a gap essentially mean? So candles, right? So you have daily candles. How is a candle formed? So when the day starts, that's when the candle starts, right? And when the day ends, that's when the candle ends. So if the price at the time of closing is higher than the price that was when the day opened or when the day started, the candle will be a green bodied candle. Otherwise, it will be a red bodied candle, right? If the price is lower. Now, because trading hours are fixed, so the candle size depends on how long the trading window is. So, for example, on Binance, a daily candle is 18th November all the way till 23:59 18th November. So a 24-hour period will be one entire day candle. And if you go to the hourly chart, then you'll see maybe like 24 hourly candles in between. But if you go to a CME or maybe a New York Stock Exchange, what happens there the trading window is, I think, 6 or 7 hours, right?
Yeah.
So in that particular case, that daily candle is only for that 6 hours, right? So even if you go into the hourly chart, you'll only find 6 hourly charts in one daily candle, right? Which constitutes a daily candle. Now, the phenomena that happens here is because crypto is effectively trading 24 hours, right? On a normal exchange like a Binance, etc. So on a CME or other places, it's only trading for a fixed period of time, right? So let's say that today the candle opens at maybe like 6 o'clock in the evening, right? Or whichever time zone you're a part of. Let's say it starts trading at 6 o'clock. 12 o'clock trading has stopped. So Bitcoin went from 90,000 to maybe 85,000, right? So it's a red bodied candle. 85,000 trading has stopped on CME, right? But in the real, on Binance or another exchanges, trading is still happening. For them, the day hasn't ended at 85. Then it went to 88, it went to 84, it went to 83, whatever. Now let's assume that the next day when CME has opened again, by the time BTC's price has now reached, so it's probably jerked quite a bit in price. And let's say the previous day on CME, the price closed at 85, but when the next day the price opens, Bitcoin has suffered a massive down move, and the Bitcoin and the BTC price is now trading at maybe like an 80K or like a 78K. So that's a big difference from the prevalent price on CME. So what will the traders do? The traders won't execute prices at 85 anymore, right? They'll definitely try to readjust themselves with this new price of BTC, which is being traded in the rest of the world. So that repricing, which is a big repricing event, which is the difference between the previous day's close and the next day's open. During such high volatile periods, you form these gaps. So the next day, the trading itself will start from maybe a 78K. So now you have a price difference of $7,000 between 85 and 78K. And now 78K, so from 78K, it can go up in price also and immediately sort of catch up. But it will start trading from that benchmark because it essentially catches up with the price at which BTC is trading on other exchanges.
Okay.
So this could be on the higher side. So you could have a gap up or you could have a gap down, right? That's what a gap essentially is. Now in regular trading phenomena, what essentially it is said, and history has sort of proven it correct because it's always sort of happened. Like I think 99% of all gaps get filled, right? Whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, or now you could also have gaps in the 5-minute chart. You could have gaps in an hourly chart. You could have gaps in a daily chart, right? You could have even gaps in an hourly chart, in a weekly chart. So the longer the time frame, the longer it takes to sort of the gap to get filled, but eventually all gaps get filled. So if a gap has been created on the downside, so if it's a gap down, eventually the price will rise up there. Then it can further come back down again, or the trend can continue, but the gap will get filled. Similarly, when the price opens gap up, chances are either immediately at that time the wick will come and fill it, or after, because the traders are anyway, so if trading is starting there, somebody is anyway liable to book a profit there who's probably bought it the previous day, right?
Got it.
So that gap immediately either gets filled or it gets filled after a certain period of time. Gaps often get filled. So that is how gaps get formed. But how gaps get traded, this is a basic way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Gaps often get filled. Yeah.
Yeah. नरकुंडी तू इस पे थोड़ी CME पे रिसर्च कर रहा था कि compared to, so really spoke about like volumes और ये सब, तो it's इन पे थोड़ी डिटेल्स दी कि कितना मार्केट शेयर है अभी CME का, कितना वॉल्यूम है in terms of numbers, और गैप्स का जो परसेंटेज है कि इन द पास्ट ये पूरे साइकिल में जितने गैप्स खुले, व्हाट इज द परसेंटेज, लाइक 99%, 100%, हैव दे ऑल गॉटन फिल्ड? वो थोड़ा उस पे थोड़ा एनालिसिस बता दे.
Yeah, so looking at the gaps first, let's talk about that. So I looked at the weekly data for 2025 and then compared it to CME prices versus the actual prices. So week's data, let's say, it gives you a good sense of, where the market is heading and how people feel during that trading week. So for BTC, when the gap was higher, which means that the prices over the weekend, they ended up being higher than what the CME price was closed at. The average deviation was almost 4% higher. And it took 6.5 days for that price to retrace and come back to what the close was for CME level. On the flip side, when the gap was lower, as in the prices were during the weekend, it dumped compared to when CME closed, that gap was just 2.5%. But more importantly, it took only 3 days to fill that price and come back up to the CME close price. I think this tells us what we discussed in the previous episode, that institutions fundamentally, structurally, it's a Bitcoin bull market. Now, this is also different to how Ethereum has behaved. Same 2025 data, same weekly charts. On both the higher and lower side, Ethereum had an average deviation of 4 to 5% on both directions. But it's taking 4.5, 5 days to fill that gap on either side, which means people are still not that confident when it comes to ETH. That do we go back to CME prices? Is that a fair price? Or do we just wait and watch? And it's taking much longer. Eventually, this gets filled. But the idea is that BTC is performing much stronger when it comes to filling that gap, especially on the institutional side, because they're coming up and scooping up whenever the prices decrease, and the price is coming back to the same spot.
Got it. Crypto Daddy, तू trade करता है, so how do you, एक तो the assets currently listed on CME are BTC and ETH only, right?
Yeah.
What assets are they looking to list? More assets, and which of those assets are they listing? And also, how do you play the CME gap when you're like short-term trading or long-term trading? How do you see it?
Okay. Yeah. To be honest, talking about additional assets getting listed on CME, I'm not sure. I haven't really checked on if they're listing any assets. My understanding is if they are going to list the assets on CME, I would assume Solana and XRP are going to be the ones that are probably going to be the next that could be getting listed on CME because of the sheer volume that they have on the exchanges for these two assets. Right?
Guys, Sol and XRP are there already.
Sol and XRP are already there. Okay. Well, I don't know about the next, right? And even if you look at Sol and XRP, again, from a trader's perspective, I don't look at CME as from a normal trader who's sitting on CME and trading options and futures. I look at it from a crypto trader's perspective. And from my sense, the only chart that I look at is the BTC CME chart, right? Because like you said, like Adil just said, that people have very little to no faith in the ETH CME chart. I mean, they usually follow the crypto market as such. BTC CME chart is very different comparatively. Now, when I'm looking at BTC CME chart, there are multiple things that you have to look into, right? So first thing first, you have to understand, like how Ritu explained, like they have an expiry, right? And it could be like a week or it could be like a month. When it comes to BTC CME, I think it's the last Friday of the month where they close their options for BTC. It could be Thursday, and then you have like the 24 hours where the auction, and then Friday is the final close where they settle the options or whatsoever. And what happens is usually 48 to 72 hours before the last Friday, right, is where traders start to sort of close their options, right? So what happens is they will either decide, okay, I have an options, let's say like right now there are puts and options set up at 85, 80 and 90K on the CME for BTC, right? Because people are assuming that BTC is going to crash further. So you have a massive build of puts on 85, 80K and 90K. And people are going to say on the last Friday, which is 28th of November, I'm guessing, they're going to say that, well, these options are going to expire and we're going to move down. So you will have traders who are going to be closing these options before the expiry happens, right? So that they don't sort of lose money or whatsoever. And when they do that, what happens is it sort of pushes the price down. And that is why you'll see in most cases that right before the last Friday of the month, you will see high volatility and price action moving down towards the downside. And that is mostly because of this. Now, this also causes a roll effect. People who haven't basically closed, they will sort of roll into the next month, and then that will sort of ease the selling on the Friday, on the Saturday, and then Sunday we see a slight pump that usually we see regularly, and then Monday it goes back down. That's because the relief from the sell pressure that happened on Friday sort of moves into Saturday and Sunday on the exchanges. So now what happens? Now you have to understand based on these put options that are placed, there is this whole Max Payne theory that works in CME, right? So you have market makers who are sitting there saying that, well, majority traders are putting puts, let's say at 85, 90K. And if the value does go there, the market makers end up losing money because then they have to pay insurance for all of this, right? So what do? They will then push the price ideally away from it so that those options or those puts do expire, and that's where they end up making money. So right now, the basic general consensus is that BTC has fallen below 92K, and if you look at crypto charts and all the whole CT that they're talking, the CT is saying that, well, BTC could push to 88K, 87K, 90K. But you also have to understand that in 2 weeks we have the CME closure for the month, right? That means the MMs are going to push the price away from 85 and 90K and sort of move it between the price range of 92 to 95K. This gives them the play area where the options that are puts that are the options or puts that are put on 85, 90K for shorts and 100 and 105K for long, they all expire, and then they end up making the MM a lot of money throughout this trade, right? So if I'm looking from a trader's perspective, I'm looking at BTC valuation for the next 2 weeks, maybe around, again, 92 to 95, 98K. That's where I see the price. Maybe after the 28th of November or after the month closing price, I may move up or may move further down. We don't know. But in the immediate short term, these are the price actions that I'm looking at. I'm not looking at prices going all the way to 85 or 85K or 82. Now, one other thing you have to understand is, like Ritvik said, that there is based on exchanges, CME does have a lot more volume, right? And interestingly, if you see in 2017, when CME BTC was released, right, or when it launched, the day it got launched was the exact date which was the top for 2017. If you go and check those dates, you'll see that was the exact top. Why? Because Wall Street money moved into BTC. They saw this massive opportunity bubble that they could short, and they shorted it on CME, right? And that is where your initiation of the 2018 bear market started. They literally moved the market from bull to bear. So a lot of people, on CT, you will have people saying that, there is a CME gap and it always falls. But then you have certain influencers who are saying that it doesn't really matter where CME moves. BTC has its own. No, it's not true. CME does move BTC either up or down. Then also you can, for the gap, like Narkundi and Realist said, that you have gaps. Now you can have a daily gap. Usually daily gaps are traded more on the CME side, where traders know that BTC has moved, let's say 7% or 5% or 2% above on the exchanges, and they know where the price should be moving, so they sort of trade CME accordingly. On the exchanges and in crypto side, what people do is sort of wait for the weekend gaps, and that's where they see, okay, so CME closed on Friday at a certain price, right? And on Saturday and Sunday, because CME is closed, the price action could move BTC up and down wherever, right? And on Monday morning when the markets open, where is BTC price? Now, from the Friday closing price and Monday morning opening price, where BTC are standing, the difference, either upside or downside, is where the gap is open. Most cases, the gaps are usually not there, but in certain cases, there are massive gaps. So like recently we had like the one you said, 91 to 92K. Does BTC always go ahead and close it right away? No, but it does always close. And that's what we've seen time and time. And there is no, I don't know, there is no practical or theoretical phenomena, like, there is no calculations based on it. It's just how it is. Like, it always goes and closes. And we've seen the 91K gap. We've seen the gap that earlier we've seen gaps at 87K when BTC was 108K and it came down, it closed the 87K gap, it closed the 78K gap. We've seen those happen. So, and a lot of CT guys sort of bet and keep pushing for, really long volumes or really short trades based on CME gap. So we've seen, I remember, there was a KOL, what was his name? He kept talking about $12,000 BTC when BTC was at 70K. I don't remember his name. He was Crypto Bear or something, I don't know. And the reason why he would say that is because there was a massive CME gap that was open between 12 to 15K, and there was a lot of liquidation sitting there, right? So he would assume that would be your bottom, and you would always go and hit there, but that's not always the case. Like even today, that gap still exists at 12K. So, right? I mean, if you look at just CME gap and think that it's always
runway gap.
Yeah,
runaway gaps.
Runaway gaps
don't get filled.
They don't get filled, right? And so it's not necessarily that all the gaps are going to get filled, but if those gaps are really close to your price, yes, they will eventually get filled. And you place your bets or your shorts or your longs accordingly, right? And that's what I do. So I look at where we are in the month, how CME is performing throughout in the month. I compare it to how BTC is moving. And based on that, then of course I will place my short. So when I had my 92K short placed, I've been saying that in the last 3-4 podcasts that I was basically because I saw BTC sort of doing a downward price action. We saw CME options that are getting put at 85 and 80 and 90K, and that sort of knew that the price is going to get attracted downwards. So you have a clearer idea then.
Got it. चलो भाई, also नरकुंडी, तुझे मुझे याद दिलाना था कि पॉडकास्ट के स्टार्टिंग में बोलूं कि लोगों को लाइक शेयर सब्सक्राइब, पर तूने किया नहीं वो. So
that was
as I was saying, for the one person who's watching it, please subscribe.
also मैं तेरे को ये बोला था कि तू मुझे ये बता कि डेटा देख के थोड़ा कि कितना वॉल्यूम CME ले जा रहा है कंपेयर टू बाइनेंस, एंड ये वो तूने बताया नहीं मुझे. You should be better prepared for these podcasts.
Oh, let me check 1 second.
You can always just ask Grok to do it, bro. Joe Rogan does it all the time.
Yeah, we are Joe Rogan. Huh.
Yeah, make Grok your best friend, Narkundi. You barely have any friends. Make him your best friend. Create that Grok girlfriend on your app.
Grok is definitely male. You can be sure about that.
No, you can have the girl version of Grok also, right?
हाँ, तूने बनाया ना, इसीलिए पता होगा. Okay, CME का बता था 13 billion worth of futures contract followed by Binance. And
Binance का कितना है?
12.5 billion बता रहा था. 12.5 billion, sorry.
Yeah, CME does more, yeah.
A billion more.
And that is all Wall Street money that is moving it up and down. It's not your retail.
Correct. Because nobody else has the license, right, to trade on CME.
Yeah.
I think you need quite a big deposit or a hefty deposit to trade on the CME.
All right, interesting show today. I hope कि जो थोड़े बहुत लोग देख रहे हैं उन्होंने कुछ सीखा, and they will place their bets accordingly. And obviously this is not financial advice. We just give you the tools to trade, not actually tell you the trades. Please like, share, subscribe, and turn your notifications on. And thank you so much for joining us. Adios.
Adios.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.